Welcome to Wonder Woman Women in Business Conference, hosted by Georgina and East Gwillimbury Chambers of Commerce. My name is Cynthia Mulligan. I am the political journalist for CityNews, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. And I'm going to start by introducing this remarkable panel of women, and we are going to have a fantastic conversation here this morning. First, the Honourable Caroline Mulroney. Caroline was first elected as the Member of Provincial Parliament for York Simcoe in 2018 and is currently serving as the Minister of Transportation and Minister of Francophone Affairs. Before entering politics, Caroline had a successful career in law in the private sector, spanning business as well, and also ran a charity benefiting homeless and at-risk women. Caroline and her husband have 4 children and a dog, and I've been told that dog's name is Peanut. Maybe there's a story on how. And they have a home in Georgina. Next, I would like to, and welcome, thank you very much for being here, Minister. And next, I would like to introduce you to Chief Donna BigCanoe. As the youngest sibling with 4 older brothers, which I'm sure was not easy at times, Donna BigCanoe grew up on Georgina Island, surrounded by a loving family that shaped the woman that she is today. Her father was also a past chief, taught her what you have to have in life is a thick skin. I'm sure your brothers taught you that as well. And always to do what's best for the community. A fun-loving and hard-working woman, I'm told you are. Donna followed in her father's footsteps and became the first woman chief of Georgina Island. That is a remarkable accomplishment. After graduating from Georgina College in 1998, with honors from the Community and Social Development course, she returned to her First Nation to work as a community consultation worker. And Donna first held her seat as councillor in 2003 for 2 terms. And then after getting her feet wet, she ran for the position of chief in 2007. Today, is she still there serving her community? And today, she also is focused on improving the quality of life for her people. Donna is strong, I'm told, a compassionate leader, a devoted wife, and mother of 3 beautiful children. Thank you for being here. And next we have Hollie Hoadley, who is once an executive assistant with a side hustle, and I kind of want to know more about what that is later on in this conversation. Hollie Hoadley is now the owner of Creative Solutions, a strategy and solutions-focused 6-figure marketing company. That is an accomplishment. Hollie fully embraces her business by being true to her personality and not taking no for an answer. Yes. And she leads a bright, amazing team of creative and delivers rock-solid strategies uniquely tailored to each of her clients' goals. She's a dad joke-loving, 90s hip-hop listening, self-proclaimed hustler with a huge heart and work ethic to match. Welcome. And last but certainly not least, Jennifer Ettinger. Jennifer Ettinger is Canada's first social media correspondent, so you are breaking ground there. A globally connected powerhouse, an American-Canadian growth hacker. She's a dual citizen who has built her profile and that of the brands she's worked with organically and authentically. A member of some of the most influential social media incubators and collaborators, including the Twitterati. She has built a reputation for creating true, amplified brand awareness across social media channels. And you may recognize her as a social media PR correspondent, covering premieres, red carpets, including the Oscars, Vanity Fair, upfronts, red carpets, ET Insider, Access Hollywood, the list goes on. And for over 16 years, she has led the CEO of Fit Your Style, a lifestyle company that focuses on holistic health services, including certified personal training, mindful practices, and lifestyle medicine. And currently, she's in training to become a behavior change specialist. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I was right. This is an amazing panel of ladies, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you all so very much. So let's have fun. Let's have a great, genuine, personal conversation. And I'm going to start with each of you are so incredibly well respected in your own fields. You've all made quite a name for yourselves. What do you think are the qualities and characteristics that have gotten you to where you are? And Minister, I'm going to start with you. And I have to start also by saying, as the political reporter at Queen's Park, I'm often chasing Minister Mulroney through the halls of Queen's Park with my microphone and a cameraman with a light on her, and she always smiles. So I will go easy on you when it comes to politics, but only today. Thank you. All right. So what qualities and characteristics do you think it's taken for you to get where you are in this very elevated position in this province, in this country?
Well, I think the qualities that I have tried to develop to get to where I am don't have to do with politics. They just have to do with what the person that I want to put out there, which is I believe in hard work. I try to work always harder than anybody else. I think as a young girl growing up, one of the things I believe that in order to win, you had to be the most prepared. And Colette was talking about women needing to put, they need to have 9 out of 10 before they decided to try for something. And I think that that's something I sort of always grew up with. So I think that being well prepared, regardless of what your field is, if it's media or politics, I think that for me has been my guiding. What's guided me in my life, from when I was in school to the different jobs that I've had. When I started my charity, the Shoebox Project, it was a lot of work and preparation and strategic thinking, and I enjoy working, so it came naturally.
Were you born with those characteristics? Did you learn them? Did they develop over time?
I think you sort of, as a mother myself, I believe that my children are who they are, and my job is to shape them, but you're born with these innate characteristics. So I think working hard and liking work is something that comes naturally to me, but I have 2 parents who worked incredibly hard. My mother's actually was not born in Canada. She was born in Yugoslavia, and so I grew up in an immigrant community in this church in Montreal, and my father was doing politics. And so I saw people working all the time, Saturdays and Sundays, morning till night. And then my parents, doing the hustle for politics. And so I just believe that working hard was what you were supposed to do. So I happen to enjoy working, so that's good.
Thank you. Chief Donna, what characteristics have led you to be who you are and where you are today?
Well, I would say definitely my family has helped shape me who I am today, and my community. And I heavily rely on my faith, and I guess there's a lot that I rely on with my characteristics. I've learned to listen a lot, and definitely listening to my community. I try and treat everyone fairly, and always strive to be able to be approachable. That's what I've always wanted to be, is approachable, and be able to look at people that may want to talk to me, to approach them first. I remember that we would look at that in school. If I seen someone standing out, I always wanted to get someone involved. Mm-hmm. So I might have learned that because my brothers were always pushing me to get involved with them in sports and stuff mm-hmm. like that. So yeah, I think my characteristics come a lot from my family and my upbringing as well.
And listening is an art. Not everybody listens to each other and then acts on it.
Yeah. It's sometimes, from my position, a lot of people just want you to hear what they're going through and to listen. It's not always providing advice. It's about listening and seeing where they've come from, their struggles, and just hearing their successes and being proud of them and encouraging.
Thank you. Hollie, I just described you as a hustler.
Yeah.
How did you come to be so?
I'm definitely a hustler, no question about it. Some people think that that's a negative term. You hustle people out of money, but I don't really see it that way. I see being a hustler as someone that just works their butt off to get what they want, no matter what. Has anyone taken the Enneagram test? If you haven't, talk to Karen. If you have, I'm a 3, so I'm an achiever. I feel like a lot of those characteristics come from the Enneagram test, where it really shows you who deep down you were born to be and who you are and what naturally comes out. So even though I'm a hustler, even though I'm from Halifax and I'm nice and approachable like yourself, I definitely have that willingness to want to everybody to come up and achieve greatness as well. With this 3 achiever, I'm supposed to almost walk over people, but I've never really done that. I've always wanted people to grow with us, and to any success that I've ever had, I want more people to jump in and jump on board with us. So characteristics like heartwarming, like loving. I don't have any kids. I have lots of nieces and nephews, which are super cute. So if you're watching, hi guys. But something like really wanting to have people grow with you, I feel is probably one of my strongest suits to where I've gotten to now.
Thank you. And Jennifer, I mean, you broke ground as social media was emerging, and I think you've paved the way for other people to create careers out of this. But how did you come to be this sort of entrepreneur on the social media scene as it was developing, and create it in your own view?
Well, I like to say that I'm fueled by passion and driven by my work ethic. And in terms of the social media community, I was very fortunate that my mentors wanted me to stay true to my voice and to how I see the world through my lens, which happens to be through my smartphone when I'm doing interviews, and to really embrace my truth and my personality into my work. So very, very fortunate that not only my mentors, I'm a 4th generation entrepreneur, and my grandfather laid the framework for me in terms of my entrepreneurial mindsets.
And what inside you, what are the most important characteristics that you have to have allowed you to break this new ground and get where you are today?
I think the characteristics come to integrity, for sure, being very integrous and holding on to core values. That has been my mainstay in terms of any decisions that I make. I also feel having a sense of humor within this world, especially we call social media a frontier. It's a wild frontier. Mm-hmm. Things are changing so fast and so quickly, and you have to be able to be flexible within those situations as well. And I think that that's carried a lot in terms of some of the experiences that I've had.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So we're going to move on to our next question. Chief, I'll start with you, Chief Donna, on this one. Work-life balance. Does it exist? I've pondered this question many times myself in my career. Do you think you can be in your successful position, raise a family, and have work-life balance?
Yes. It's challenging. It's very challenging. I know that I make it very clear that because I have young children, we sit down to have dinner at least 4 or 5 days out of the week, especially with their busy schedules, their activities. But I was told by a woman in my community when I was pregnant with my first child that I didn't know if I should stay in politics, and she was very encouraging. And I have a lot of support from my family and my friends, and my community was very supportive. The first year I was pregnant with my child, there was elections at the same time, so that's when I wasn't going to run. And I was actually acclaimed. No one ran against me. So it showed to me the community was accepted, that I was going to be a mom, and that they would be okay when I had to step away from work at times. They were actually very supportive of me that year, very supportive. And I believe women can do it. We can raise families, and we can have careers and be successful. It's a balance. It is a balance. We have to make sure we look at our young ones, our children we're raising, and be there for them as well. So sometimes you do have to turn off the cell phone and you have to not look at the emails coming in. So that's one thing I'm learning to do, especially when I'm with my kids at activities, and it's working. But I think women can do it. We're very good at balancing, and I see that with a lot of women in my community, balancing careers and a family. I see that right with the women I'm sitting with. So,
Definitely.
yeah.
Holly, what does work-life balance mean to you? What does that look like?
It looks like the future because it doesn't necessarily happen right now. It's something that I'm working on extremely hard on. For me, I would like to be able to not be such a workaholic, for sure. I have set the business up in a way that I was able to go away to Florida for 3 weeks. No problem. The business kept going. Clients were happy. Team was happy. But when it comes to personal health, I feel like we put ourselves last, always. It's just natural for us to do, I feel. And being a workaholic at the same time, and as an achiever, I feel like I really would like that work balance to come sooner than later. You know, I'm not getting any younger. I'm in my 40s, you know, not getting younger here. And I definitely want to have that happen very soon. So I'm working really hard towards building that and to show the team that we can actually all do it together as well, to have that work-life balance.
Do you have any techniques you're using to try and achieve that?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I could never read a book. I don't know why. I could never actually finish a book from start to finish. All the words would be jumbled. Maybe I'm dyslexic, I'm not sure. I read my first book in my entire life just last year. I made it a goal to read one book in a year. And in December, I was like, oh shoot, I gotta finish this book. And I actually finished the book. So to me, that work-life balance is that one technique of being able to push myself to grab the book and actually pick it up and read. I felt that calmed me down, especially if you want to, go to bed 11 o'clock at night, you can't watch television until 10:59, unless you're watching the news, which watch the news at 6 if you can watch the news. So I felt like that was that one small part that I took for myself to be able to get to that point. Still working on it. I have a second book that I'm reading now that I should finish by the end of the year.
How about you, Jennifer?
I think it's incredibly difficult to do. I do think it's attainable, as the chief said. I feel that we are either in a crisis, coming out of a crisis, or we know someone in a crisis in our lives. Things are always moving. And one of the biggest lessons I learned was not to adhere to the squirrel effect. And what I mean by that is when I'm walking my dog Sprinkles on the trails in Aurora, and he sees a squirrel, he goes this way. And when he sees another squirrel, he goes that way. And as entrepreneurs, when we are looking for work-life balance, we can have the squirrel effect, where we go this way and we go that way because we have a fear of missing out. We have a fear of saying no. And the reality is, if you take a breath and you get focused and clear, you will realize that the path you are meant to be on is going to allow you to have better work-life balance than trying to grab every opportunity that comes your way.
And Carolyn, what is your secret to a work-life balance? Is it elusive?
Well, there's no secret, and sometimes if you asked me this yesterday, I'd say no, I don't have any work-life balance, and it's not achievable. It depends on the day. But I think that in order to find that calm, where I think for me balance is sort of being able to feel like you're on top of things and you're getting to spend time on things that are important to you, and you're on top of your files, you're spending time with people that you care about, doing things that you love. I think that balance changes over time. And so for me, I've redefined my definition of what balance looks like to me. So when my children were young and I was more entrepreneurial in my life and working in business, that squirrel effect sprinkles effect. Trying to manage that and spend time with my kids and exercise and do all these kinds of things. Now my life is so different because of my political life, and as you know, something can just pop up, a big issue comes up, and so what surprises me in politics is I have a very organized day, and then something will happen at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'll turn on the radio and I'll say, oh, my day is going to look completely different. And so to not be thrown off by that, I sort of have to change my definition of what that is. So right now, balance for me is being on top of my files so that regardless of what comes my way, I'm prepared. I feel good if I'm that way, and then if I can make sure that I spend time with my kids and my husband. So working out and time with my girlfriends, unfortunately, those are things that would be awesome to have, and they're very special when they happen, but I need to manage work and family. Those right now in my life, that's balance. So if I can do that, and as Colette said, not every day, you don't always get it right every day. I think about it over sort of in a week. But for me, I think changing the definition of balance to suit who you are, and then everyone has their own. So they might say, you need to do this, you need to do that. For me, I have to figure out what works for me.
Right, and it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw this out to all of you, and if any of you have thoughts on this question, do you need to create boundaries to have that work-life balance? And if so, what are some of the boundaries that you're able to create to achieve that? Jennifer.
I love this question. So this last year, I've spent redefining my boundaries. And from that, putting myself first and ensuring that I'm first. And people tease me about the phone because I work as a social correspondent. I'm always on my phone. However, I've created strong boundaries around that because we live in a society that wants instant gratification, which now we believe that human beings should be available 24/7. We're not wired, and this is where the holistic hat of my company, one company, comes into play, where we're not wired for 24/7 access, and that only hurts us in the long run. So I personally said enough, created strong boundaries in terms of when I'm available. I no longer work nights and weekends unless it's a media activation, and that has changed my life so that I am more productive in working with people. Now, the caveat to this is some will respect those changes and others look at you like you're a monster with two heads. Like, what do you mean you're not available? So it's staying true to you and knowing that you'll still find the business, you'll find the right business with people who respect your personal boundaries.
And you find you're more productive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Anyone else have thoughts on this topic?
I think learning to say no is important, and that you're not being impolite when you're saying no. You can find polite ways to say no. Doing that has been very helpful to me. That's a wonderful idea. I'm sorry I can't do it, but I hope I will be able to next time.
Right.
You know, it's like a compliment sandwich around a no. But it's, you know, in politics, there's something every single night. There's something at Queen's Park. There's receptions at breakfast. I'd never heard that, but if they come to if an organization is coming to Queen's Park to lobby, they lobby at breakfast, they lobby at lunch, and then they lobby in the evening. So
they had egg sandwiches last week.
Yeah, the egg farmers. So there's always an opportunity to network, and there's always an opportunity to be going out and doing things, but you will run yourself ragged. So trying to find a way to sort of frame what your day will look like, and knowing that it's okay to say no.
Anyone else?
For me, one of the best things that I've ever done in my life was fire a client. And a lot of people in my industry, or a lot of other business owners that I know, they're like, no, you can't fire clients. You need to take everybody on. Everybody, you need the money. You need to help everybody. And we're not the right fit for everybody. Not every client is the right fit for us. The clients that we have are amazing, and when they start to not be amazing, you have the talk with them. If the talk doesn't work, you let them go. And the very first client that I ever let go it was a huge decision on my part, and that boundary really needs to be set to show the team that they don't have to deal with it, that I'm there for them, that we're gonna stick up for the team, and that's more important to me than someone paying my bills. And honestly, it was the best decision I've ever made in my entire life, was to fire that very first client that I thought was paying my bills.
Interesting. How about you, Chief?
Well, I agree with Caroline that you do have to learn to say no, because you can go to a meeting every day. You can meet with someone every day. And I think in the beginning of my position, you do feel torn. You feel like you got to do everything. But I've learned to pick and choose what I feel is going to benefit my community. And I have great staff. I have excellent staff that when I can't do something, I have an excellent counsel that works with me. I have staff that can go to these meetings on our behalf. So it's utilizing the expert people you have in your life too, and working for the betterment of, well, my First Nation.
Do you think as women it's harder for us to say no? That it's instinctual for, I think, for women to be the pleasers and to try and go to every meeting and meet every member that you need to in your riding or client. Do you think it's harder for women than men to learn to say no?
Absolutely, 100%. I think you have to be trained. Like, you have to train yourself in order to say no. And even if as I'm saying this, I'm like, say no in the right way. You have to sort of train yourself out of it. I think it's really natural for us to say yes to everything and then be overwhelmed by it, then freak out and stress out because we're overwhelmed by it and don't know how to get out of it. But if you just say no at the beginning of something that your gut's telling you to say no about, you don't have to think about it any other way. It's literally just no. Not no, just I'll help you later, just no.
Okay, next question, and it's directed at you two, Chief Donna and Caroline. Both of you have followed in your father's footsteps and created your own paths in the process. But do you think that your chosen fields has changed in the generation before you, and how is it different than your fathers as they were approaching these lives? I love the way she said, you first.
Well, it has. It's definitely changed from when I grew up. There was a lot of male chiefs, and it was a male-dominated society in our community. And it's changed. It's changed a lot to where, well, I'm the first woman chief, but I see when I go out to other First Nations, there's a lot of women chief being elected. And it's great to see that, and I love that we're not afraid to take up the challenge. So sometimes you're at meetings. I was actually just reminiscing with my friend Suzanne that when I went to a meeting, and it was when I was first chief, we were brought into a circle, and it was a lot of men chief with the chiefs of Ontario, and I felt very intimidated that I shouldn't be here. I felt, and there was an audience, like, we were brought into a circle, the chiefs, and then there was the spectators. I had one of my counselors come with me, who was also my uncle, and he was a previous chief, so he was there as well. But when we were in the circle, we had to discuss our struggles and where we could come together on different issues. But I felt that there was only like 3 or 4 women out of like 80 women chiefs there, and I felt I shouldn't be here.
Did you feel welcomed?
Not everybody was welcoming, no. And I thought maybe I'm in the wrong field, and I was feeling very tied. And while we were in that circle, so after we went through what we needed to go through, there was a break, and there was the smudge, and we walked out and we had a break, and I walked out and there was this vendor selling earrings and stuff. So I walked up and I picked up some earrings, and this gentleman came over to me and he said, I need to talk to you. And I didn't know who he was. I'd never seen him before. And he said, he goes, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I see things and things can be heard. And I was looking at him, and I'll never forget his name, is James Moxon. And he said, something's with you. I saw it in the circle. And I was like, okay. And he's like, it was like whispering like a wind in my ear. He goes, are you gonna be busy? Do you have stuff to do? And I'm like, busy? He's like, a name, and I'm looking at him and I'm holding this earring, and he goes, it's with you. And I'm like, busy? And he's like, busy Hugh, maybe, he said. And I said, Buzzy Hugh? And I'm like, that's my dad. And I never met this guy, and my earring dropped, and my eyes got all water. I'm like, he's with you. He's with you in that circle. And I'm like, what? And my uncle saw me kind of getting flustered, and he came over, what's going on here? And James is like, I'm not causing any trouble. He said, he gave his name. He told me what First Nation he was from. He was from Henvey Inlet. So my uncle knew people at Henvey Inlet, and during the break he called. So this gentleman is a seer in his community.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like flabbergasted, but I went back into the meeting so much more confident that I am supposed to be here. And you know what? I'm going to say what I feel. I was nervous too in that setting, but I got more courage. And I felt, okay, my dad even thinks I'm supposed to be here, so I'm going to do this. And yeah, so that's where I am. And it has changed. There is more women chiefs at these meetings, and there's more acceptance of women chiefs. There's actually the first elected chief of Ontario, Roseanne Archibald, and I voted for her, and she's done amazing. So it's exciting now that it's changing.
Okay, now it's your turn.
So when my dad was in politics, he won the leadership of the PC Party of Canada on my 9th birthday.
Wow.
And I got to watch him on TV, and I was so excited because he'd wished me happy birthday on TV, and it was a big deal. And we moved to Ottawa the next day. I had no idea what was happening. So I sort of was a bit of a spectator, for the early years. And, I would meet women like Pat Carney and Kim Campbell, and they were strong women. There weren't that many, but it certainly was. In the 80s, it was much more of a man's game, and women who were participating at the political level were trailblazers. And I'm holding the seat today of a trailblazer. Julia Monroe was the longest-serving woman at Queen's Park in the Ontario legislature. And when I think back to what it must have been like for her to go to caucus meetings or go to different meetings, and she was one of the only women there, or someone like Janet Ecker, and one of the first female finance minister. I mean, these are the true trailblazers. So I consider myself incredibly lucky that I was elected with with obviously not a majority of women in our caucus, but we've got a great caucus of women who are strong and all different. Everyone is their own person. We're not trying to fit into a box of what an assertive, strong female politician should be. Everybody has their own personality, their own quirks, their own voice. Some are louder than others. Some are more forceful or more assertive, but everyone is effective in their own way. And I love watching my fellow female colleagues and learning from them about how they're using their voice to be effective in their way, as opposed to trying to fit the mold that I think women probably did back in the 80s. Working, the movie Working Girl, I loved that, where you had to play the game a certain way if you were going to be successful. So I think it still isn't easy.
Are you treated differently? Are female politicians treated differently than the male politicians still today? Is there a different playing field or level?
Well, it depends by whom. I don't think by my constituents that I'm treated differently. When I ran for the leadership of the party, I did get a lot of questions, or not a lot. I got many questions of, well, who's going to take care of your children if you win? So I got that, but I think that. So it depends. I think people expect their representatives to reflect them. And so we have a diverse caucus: men, women, people of different ethnicities. So I think that's fine. I think that's not an issue. I don't find it to be an issue, but I do find, as you're trying to move files along and negotiate, sometimes there are more men in the back rooms, and we are working really hard I find sometimes I have to work a little bit harder or differently, or be more strategic because I'm a woman. Because success looks different. I don't need to go in and say, have a big, showy win. It's sort of what Colette was saying. The Teddy Roosevelt quote is important. My dad quotes it all the time. It's amazing what you'll accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. I don't feel like I need it, and I heard Colette say she doesn't need it, and I hear it from a lot of women. I don't hear it as much from men. and so I find the back rooms to still be a bit challenging, but it's the game.
Do you have to thicken your skin more, do you think, as a woman?
I think in politics, you have to thicken your skin. I don't know. I can't speak for the other women on the panel, but I think, yes, I think it's essential to have a thick skin. In anything today, if you're in social media, you're getting criticisms from every which way, and you have to tune those out, because you have to remember, as Julie Monroe would say, you have to remember your core values, why you're there, and remember that, and just be guided by that, because all these voices will to deter you from why you got into this in the first place?
Okay, now we're going to talk to our two entrepreneurs. And I'm curious to see if you have similar responses to these questions. How did you find the courage to take that entrepreneurial leap? My father was an entrepreneur as well, and I know a bit about that world. It's tough, and you're putting everything you have and taking big risks starting your own businesses. So Jennifer, I'll start with you,
Sure.
and then you, Hollie.
So there's a saying that after a storm comes a rainbow. And in my personal journey with my first company, Fit Your Style, it was born because I was bedridden many years ago with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia for a year. And it was holistic practices that changed my life. And from that, I decided I wanted to share and service others with what I learned. So I became a certified personal trainer and created a program, Fit Your Style, based on the experience that I had. So I was driven by the passion of what I went through, knowing other women most likely were going through similar challenges. So it was very much a personal journey that allowed me to create this business. I'm trained as a museum curator.
Wow.
I have a master's degree in museum studies, and I have had that chapter in my life, so I'm grateful for that. But the other side of that, after Fit Your Style was born, was I was going to be giving birth to my first and only daughter. And what's beautiful is there's only 2 months difference between the birth of my daughter and the birth of my business. And I said to myself, when you talked about failure and fear, I had to eliminate that completely because there were no other options than I wanted to be at home with my daughter and work around her needs. She's 16, I still pick her up from school every day at 2:50. And so I knew, you've got to make this happen. There's no plan B here. You've got to make it happen. And I believe that's what was the fire that allowed me to create Fit Your Style 16 years ago and Pink Dreams Inc. 3 years ago.
Amazing. That's really amazing. Hollie, what's your experience?
My experience, so my dad, again, is an entrepreneur as well. I feel like that runs in this panel. Is your dad an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Perfect score. I've always watched him struggle, so I never thought I was ever going to be an entrepreneur. I always saw the ups and downs, the huge chunks of money gone, the huge chunks of money in. It was just too much stress and pressure, so I actually I worked for entrepreneurs for most of my life. And the last entrepreneur I worked for, I actually had a nervous breakdown. I was in my 30s. I crashed and burned. I was working so hard for everyone else. And I decided to go into corporate because I figured that would be easier somehow. Wrong, again. I worked for corporate for about 4 years. I was marketing manager of Canada for a Fortune 500 company, and it was amazing. Lots of perks, lots of great stuff. Guess what happened? Burnt out. Burnt out, yeah. So I started to fail a little bit. I really love to be able to handle all aspects of business. I love operations, I love logistics, I love building intranets and websites and just going crazy at everything that I felt like I was good at or I wanted to do. And so when you burn out, what starts to happen is your output starts to dwindle a little bit. So I ended up I was let go from this company. They started to downsize most of the different departments within this specific company. And I was one of the first group of 5 to be let go. And I thought, well, I don't really want to work for entrepreneurs anymore because they're crazy. So the ones that I worked for were. And they want it their own way. So I wanted things my own way. And I was like, how do I make this work? I don't want to work for corporate again because it wasn't my jam. Like they didn't get me. And even though it was construction management, I was able to be mostly myself. It just it wasn't for me. It was that suit and tie thing wasn't for me. Not that I wore a tie. The suit thing was not for me. So when I changed my LinkedIn profile after I was let go to consultant, just figured, throw it out there. I got a severance, let's see what happens. I ended up getting a lot of calls from the people that I was working with at the time through corporate. And everyone said, come work for me, come work for me. And I thought, nah, I'll just wait for a little bit. Creative Solutions was born literally 2 days after I was let go when I changed my LinkedIn profile. I got 5 offers right away to come in and consult, and I took businesses from a $2 million revenue to $42 million in a year and a half. It was a huge, huge, huge eye-opener for me. I knew that I thought different, and I knew that I was weird and quirky, and I was finally getting paid for it. That was that moment I went, holy crap, you get paid for being weird. This is amazing. And that, literally, I haven't looked back since.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to throw this one out to all of you. What is your definition of success for yourselves? Because I think it would be different for everyone. Chief? Oh, am I putting you on the spot first? Sorry.
Definition for success first.
Yeah, what does success mean to you?
Well, I guess for sure with my community, it would be having my community healthy and well, prosperous, and getting through the challenges that we are going through in a good way and working together, respecting each other's views. And definitely raising my children would be in a good way, that they grow up to be good people is would be of excellent success to achieve. That my children are very respectful and grow up to be good people, and a healthy and prosperous community. It wouldn't just be my success, I think it would be my community's success as well.
Caroline?
It'd be very similar. I think, if I get to the end of my life and what would people say I did, I'd want people to think that I left the world a better place than when I entered. And that includes with the children that I raise and what kind of values that I raise them with and what they put out in the world with my work, with the charity I started, like sort of the combination of all those things.
Hollie?
You nailed it. Like, what would people say about you, sort of in your obituary? That's sort of how I see success. Like, how many people have you touched over the time that you've been in business and been on this earth? Have you made everybody happy? Have you grown your team enough to make them happy? Are they supported? Have you helped all the different clients that you can help? I feel like my successes mostly come from business successes. So setting those really strong goals and then achieving them, I feel like is where success comes from my end, and to be able to be healthy and happy.
And Jennifer?
Very similar. How many lives have I been able to impact, whether it's on the holistic side or in the business side of success? I'm not driven by money, gasp, but the money follows. And proud to say, company's six-figure company, it follows when your core values, I believe, are aligned and you're coming from the right place.
So as women, do you feel, because it is International Women's Day this coming weekend, do you have any barriers that you're still encountering today as women? Okay, Hollie, let's start with you.
Sorry, I was just like, I'll tell this really quick story. It happened so recent that I couldn't believe it, and it is a gasp-worthy type of situation. And this is not me bragging in the slightest bit. This is literally something that happened. I went to a meeting. I was brought to a meeting as a consultant with another consultant to talk about big picture business strategies. I go in, and they think I'm 20 first. Then they think blonde chick probably doesn't know what she's talking about. It's just this weird vibe I was getting from these guys that were in the meeting. And I started to tell them more and more about the business and more what we can help with, and I had some really great strategies and ideas. And I swear to you, one guy looked at me and said, you're too pretty to be that smart. Right?
Wow.
I couldn't believe it came out of that person's mouth. And I literally looked at the consultant that brought me and I said, well, thank you for that. Thank you for introducing me to these lovely people. I'm going to leave now. And I could not believe it. So I think the barriers are still there. And I think sexism, I guess, is still there to a point, but I think we're making some really strong strides. And I think that this room of women is really what's going to bring the world to a better place, knowing that we are strong, knowing that we can celebrate things like this. And I just hope no one ever goes through something like that, because it is a punch to the neck. throat or however, gut. Someone punched me somewhere. And it's just not a good feeling. So yeah, it's definitely there.
Anybody else have an experience like that recently?
I have.
You
as
have.
well, so yeah.
Lovely. Yeah.
It's very fascinating that we have a long way to go in terms of breaking through. And I've been in business meetings where I've been told afterwards, why her? Age, we won't even go there.
Which is something women have to deal with more than men ever do. Right?
Absolutely. I'm not a glamazon. I'm just your everyday girl, which I'm proud of. So I say that with respect to myself. But I've worked so hard personally on my resume. I mean, one would hope your resume and your personality when you meet people would speak volumes, but it's very interesting how there's such perceived notions of what people need for a particular role. And it's just sad to see that we should go from the inside versus the age, the exterior, etc., if they are very capable of doing a job. So I do believe we have a long way to go. But in the same breath, and I think you can attest to this, you do find those like minds who resonate with your energy, with your background. So you do have to have a very tough skin, but you'll get through it, and you will find the right work.
Now, we already talked what it was like for both of you in politics and in leadership, so I'm going to move on to the next question, if I may, and it's about closing the gender gap. And in 2018, this infuriates me. Stats Canada reported that women earned 87 cents on the dollar for men. How do you feel that we can close this gender gap in 2020?
Well, on the pay side, it's infuriating. I think that we have got to. I've experienced it myself. When I took a little time off after my kids were born, I was willing to take a serious pay cut just because I was grateful for whatever opportunity I was given. And I have a lot of friends who graduated from university or law school and had kids, and so they took that step back. And I remember a conversation with a girlfriend who did not stop working through the time she was raising her kids, and she said, do not take that job. You're not going to get back to that level again. And it took me a very, very long time. There's a book by Mika Brzezinski, who co-hosts the Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough.
Yes.
She wrote a book called Learning Your Value, and how as women we need to find our voice to negotiate for compensation, because we were taught to be polite, we were taught to work hard, as I talked about right at the beginning, but we somehow we were never taught to fight for money,
right.
and associate the value of our time with money. And as young girls, that's a serious impediment for us in terms of our future success. And so she wrote a book about this and how women do this. It was this her own story, but she has anecdotes from other people. And one of the things that she interviewed a woman who is the head of global HR at a major company. She would not say what name. She's a woman. She says, I always love to hire women who work part-time, because I know I will get full-time work out of her, because she will feel so grateful for the opportunity that I've given her. And so I think that we ourselves have got to learn to negotiate for ourselves and fight for it. And I remember one job I got, I had gotten the salary, and I said, this is not going to do it. And so I just said no. And I remember my heart beating when I sent that contract back. And he couldn't believe it. He did not expect it, and I had to be prepared to walk away to demand what I knew I was worth to that company, and based on where I wanted to be. But that wasn't that long ago. So but I think that learning to negotiate for yourself and understanding that your time is money is important.
Good point. Yes, that's right. I'm going to move to the next question because we're starting to run out of time. So, dealing with struggles. Anything keep you up at night?
All of the things in the brain. Nothing in particular for me. I just feel like everything compounds, and the bigger your dreams are, the more stress comes with it. So I feel like if you're trying to achieve that goal and to really push yourself forward to achieve that, the stress has come along with it. So not really sure of specific struggles.
Jennifer?
They're always there. We're human. We're entrepreneurs.
Right.
They're going to be there. So it's just a matter of taking that deep breath again and understanding and staying focused, so that if you stay aligned and you stay focused, you'll be able to deal with those challenges in a much different way.
Okay, that from the entrepreneurs. Now how about the chief and the politician?
So
Struggles, definitely. There are struggles, and they can keep you up at night. So how I deal with some of them is, well, definitely trying to focus on an outcome, relying heavily on the people you're working with. If you need to vent, sometimes the struggles, you need to just get it off your chest and vent about the frustration to confidential people that keep it confidential. And I pray too. I pray a lot, especially if it's something that is going to be harmful to my community. And I rely on a lot of wise people to speak to provide guidance, especially with the struggles, and to be able to sleep at night.
What keeps you up? And I'm not asking as a political reporter, really.
Things keep me up every night. But I'm privileged that I was elected by the people of York Simcoe, that I get to go and represent this riding, and that I have the portfolios that I have. I love the files that I'm working on, some more than others. They're important, and so I think the fact that my brain is racing about these issues is because I care about it, and so that doesn't bother me. In terms of the struggles, I've got a lot of support in my life, and I was lucky, given the family that I've had, to be where I am. There are people who have much greater struggles, and so, on International Women's Day, I think about people who are much less fortunate, who would like to be sitting up on a stage like this one day with Cynthia Mulligan, interviewing them and asking them about their path and how we clear that path for women, like for those women.
That's a good answer. All of you. It's been such a great conversation, so thank you so much. When you're doing your work, do any of you specifically try and think, how can I help other women along the way? And can you give me some examples? Let's talk about that openly here.
Well, both sides of my career are all about helping women. Mm-hmm. So but interesting enough, they both, whether it's social PR or the holistic part, it begins in the mindset on both ends. So it's a beautiful thing to see a woman shift her mindset into a place of empowerment. And on one side, we may see a physical change in that. And then on the business side, we will see a transformation and clarity with her work. And so it's an honor and a privilege to be a conduit, a small part of that, because at the end of the day, it needs to come from within. It's the most rewarding jobs that I have. I mean, I love what I do. I'm very fortunate to do what I do.
Hollie, in your business, are you cognizant of other women and trying to help collectively?
Absolutely. When I was younger, we actually lived in a shelter for quite some time. So for me, it was a women's shelter for women that were running from situations. So I always see it, every situation that we're ever in, I feel like it's always temporary. Even if it's the super high moments or the super low moments, they're always temporary no matter what. So when it comes to giving back or helping women, I feel like 80% of my business is women team members. I've made sure of that. I feel very good to be surrounded by women. I feel good about being able to help them be employed and in a culture that is, like I said, quirky and goofy, and we can swear and we can be ourselves and be unapologetically us. I do a lot of public speaking at like the women's centers here, and I want to make sure I'm giving back nonstop. A lot of the groups that I speak to about job skills or about being them and showcasing their true selves is all about empowering women and empowering them to understand that they know that this is a very temporary situation and things are always going to get better.
Do each of you have a female mentor or a particular woman who inspired you to be who and where you are today? Let's start with you.
Well, my mother's, everything begins and ends with my mom. She's incredibly strong. She's Serbian, and she's so Eastern European, like very, very tough. She's so nice and so poised, but she was incredibly strong. And my dad always said about my mom that she's very ambitious for her children. She always wanted so much for me and my 3 brothers. And so she pushed me. She didn't get to do all the things she wanted to do because of my father's career. And so we talk a lot about that. So she doesn't have the the business experiences that she hoped for, that she can then, she can't give me advice based on that. But she's seen a lot of people, and she still is that mentor to me because she saw so much as the spouse of a politician, and she was a great listener. She really cared about the people that she met, and so she brought all of those stories and that advice back. So my mom is always my number one.
Chief Donna?
It's definitely my mom, too.
Aw.
She always said I could be anything I wanted to be. But when I was younger, I never wanted to grow up and be a chief. I wanted to be a teacher. And I just led into that role to be where I am today. But she's always was encouraging of me. She never let me quit anything. She had me in ballet for years, and I was so tired of taking. She's like, "You're not quitting. You're gonna do it. Yeah, you're not allowed to quit." I went away to school. When I went away to college or to university, I was alone. I didn't want to stay. I finished the first semester, and I wanted to come home. No, I can't quit. I have to stay and finish. And she was really encouraging of me. She taught me not to quit, to see things through, to be committed. And it's the same when I have challenges with my position. She's a great listener when I can share some things with her. I can't share too many because she might get angry. And she's always been like my biggest fan. She's my biggest fan. She's here right now.
Where's Mom?
Aw. So
Beautiful. And we're down to 2 minutes. I could go on with this conversation for much longer, but Hollie and Jennifer.
Yeah, mine is not my mom, just so everyone knows. Sorry, Mom. Mine are my basketball coaches. So when I was in university and high school, I played basketball, and they believed in me more than I believed in myself. And someone that can there wasn't a lot of female basketball coaches back then either. It was mostly male basketball coaches. So a female basketball coach comes in, believes in me, stays extra, pays for stuff that I couldn't afford, and really believed in me. That is who propelled me to know that I could be something different. Yeah.
Amazing. And Jennifer?
My mom, but I'm not going to talk about her. I'm going to talk about a master personal trainer who shared with me, which pivoted my whole career. Jenny, get involved in community. And if you get involved in community, and as an entrepreneur, that's interwoven. And my favorite quote is, the more you give, the more you receive, and the more you receive, the more you give. So I thank Nikki Anderson for that.
All right. Well, ladies, thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation. I've really appreciated your insight, your wisdom, your experience. And how about a round of applause for all of them? Aren't they amazing? Spectacular. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to all for being here. On behalf of the Georgina and East Gwillimbury Chambers of Commerce, thank you so very much for joining us and watching Wonder Women, the Women in Business panel. Have a great day.